New segment, new setting. So I'm sticking to my Avatar stuff, don't worry, but as a gay person, I do want to dive into a bit more queer media in my content, and particularly just my analysis of queer films, not to an extreme level. I just kind of want to banter it out a little bit and just kind of get my thoughts out about certain things. So today there's a topic that I really want to talk about that's been on my mind for a long period of time, and that is the hypercritical nature that people within the queer community, but also just even not in the queer community, that people have towards queer media. And yeah, I want to dive into that. So let's do it. Now, I just want to say, most of the examples that I'm going to be using for this are woman-loving woman relationships. That's because that's most of the media, or most queer media that I dive into, because it's obviously gay woman. I'm like, that's my jam. So that's what most of my examples are going to be. From what I talk, if you guys have other examples that you want to mention, just drop them down in the comments. And my phone's just fallen off the bed. Hopefully you guys didn't hear that. But if you guys have other examples or things that you want me to check out, just let me know in the comments. But what I want to dive into specifically is this very hypercritical nature that we have towards queer media. I feel like it's often held to such high standards, sometimes needlessly so. Like, the standards that I feel that are put on queer media are to a level that is never put onto heterosexual media. And in some cases the critical element needs to be there, especially when things aren't done very well. There's issues with it, like the Danish Girl, for example. Lots of questions of the fact that, you know, probably should have been a trans woman cast in the role. It's, you know, all issues with that. I'm not very knowledgeable on that subject. There is a documentary that's named, I've forgotten, I'll put it here when I remember in editing, to check out. They explore it a little bit more there. But things like that, there is the critical element. But there are things that I feel are criticised for the sake of being criticised in some way, especially considering that things that they are criticising is something that heterosexual media is allowed to get away with. And the biggest example for me of that is Happiest Season. Now, Happiest Season was the first ever gay Christmas film, basically, and it features Kristen Stewart as one of the lead characters, with her character Abby and her girlfriend Harper. Now, some of the big criticisms that came out was that it was another coming out story. The relationship isn't great because one of them is closeted, one of them is not, and the other kind of makes them be closeted to kind of figure out how to deal with it, to be around their family. They don't really know what to do. But the biggest thing that came out of it, which is the thing that I want to focus on here, is that people have talked about the fact that Harper and Abby are not a good couple because Harper isn't a good person. Now, there is something that's actually said in the film that I think is really important, and it's the fact that everyone's story is different and everyone reacts to their own story in a different way. That last bit technically is in the film, but you get my meaning. Harper's reaction to this fear of coming out is a very personal thing. Should she be taking out on Abby? No, not at all. But the thing that I want to talk about is the fact that stories like that are commonplace in heterosexual media. There's a relationship in a heterosexual film. One of them is usually a douche, but they're allowed to get away with it. They're allowed to not be the nicest of people. Their relationship, think of Friends with Benefits, for example. I don't like that film because I don't like the male character. I am critical of it, but that is a very common thing where someone is an asshole. They say something horrible about about their partner, basically. There's a dilemma, they break up or they separate or anything like that, but by the end of the film they're back together, and it's like a quick apology sort of thing. It's just a solving of the situation and it's fine. Sometimes there's even, same with Friends with Benefits, there's the possibility of another love interest for the female character. It doesn't go well, do admit that, but there are possibilities out there for them to be with someone who appreciates them in a better way. But that's the thing that I kind of want to focus on here. Heterosexual media is allowed to show toxic and, imbalanced but also complicated relationships where someone can be a crappy person, and yet at the end of the day things can be fixed with an apology, with a make-up, with trying to be better, and it's fine. But in the happier season, the criticisms of that relationship for me feel like it's just kind of going a step too far. Like, if we can allow that in heterosexual films but feel like it's a disservice to happier season for something that is very well documented in heterosexual media, it's just a little bit frustrating. Like, queer film and queer media should have the opportunity to be messy in their relationships, in their portrayal, not in the script, because the script and all that sort of stuff needs to be good, but like, we're very limited in what we're shown in media. Like, there is no opportunity, like, toxic relationships aren't really shown in queer media, and I think that's something that needs to be improved. I think we need very different forms of media. Like, I want a gay action film, I want a gay horror, like all these sort of things. Like, we need to have that room to be just like, in a way, what heterosexual media is allowed to be, where they can do whatever they want, the story can be whatever they want. But queer media doesn't really have that opportunity, and this critical nature of kind of holding queer media to this higher standard, I think, perpetuates this lack of ability to have queer content reach into other genres. Now, I'm not saying by being critical we're stopping that from happening, because, you know, people are allowed to be critical. I have a podcast where all I do is be critical, both in a positive and negative way. But things like the fact that the happier season storyline and relationship dynamic is what we do regularly see in heterosexual media, but it's shamed in this one, but not shamed as much in a way in heterosexual media. It just feels a little bit disingenuous, and this is something that comes across with lots of critical discussions about queer media. Like, The Half of It, for example, I adored that film, and it wasn't a romance. There were romantic elements. There is a crush that our main girl has on the other female character. I'm sorry, I've forgotten their names. But people called the film queerbait. Like, even though the lead character is gay, it was called queerbaiting because they don't really have a romantic relationship. What kind of logic is that? You have a queer lead character. It was more about friendship. Can we not have friendship films? Like, yes, there is the romantic element of, like, the writing the love letters and stuff like that. We get a kiss. How is that queer baiting? But that was something that was really brought up, that people were frustrated and called it queer baiting because the romance wasn't there as much. The term gay wasn't used, which apparently is a problem. Firstly, the term gay was used, admittedly, in a Google search, but still, like, it's there. Like, we're aware that she is queer, but it was still being called a queer-baited film. Not widely, but the fact that that discussion was there is in itself a little bit ridiculous. But even in other things, like, there is so much opportunity for queer media, but I feel like there is too much of a critical study of just the smallest thing that we consider to be not right, that then the whole thing is seen as bad. Like, The Happiest Season isn't a bad film. It's a cheesy ass Hallmark based like movie, but if heterosexual media can have cheesy Hallmarky like media, then the queer media should be able to have the same thing. I think the critiquing to the extreme is a double-edged sword. You can critique, you can talk about these things and, you know, discuss the problems and all these sort of elements of queer media, but to hold it to a different standard than you would heterosexual media, I feel is at the end of the day a little bit disingenuous. And this is just the one thing that I kind of want people to realise when being critical of queer media, and I need to do the same admittedly myself, I do that a lot too, is that if I wouldn't say this about a heterosexual film, should I be saying it about a queer film? But what do you guys think? Do you think it's possible to be too critical of queer media? And do we as an audience need to not stop being critical, but learn to appreciate the film for what it is, whilst also being critical? I don't know if any of that made sense. I just kind of really wanted to get my thoughts out on this. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see what you guys think as a whole. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. I truly do appreciate it. I know this is a bit of a rambling mess, and honestly, all the other ones I'm going to be doing in future are probably going to be rambling messes as well. But these are things that I'm interested in. These are things that I really want to talk about. So I hope you appreciate it on the level that hopefully it'll be of an interest to people. And yeah, if you want more content like this, let me know what sort of topics you want me to broach in future. If you want to see more like this in general, just hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, drop a thumbs up, a comment, share with your friends, check out the description box where you can follow me on social media, you can check out my merchandise store, and if you want to support me outside of YouTube, you can check out my Patreon and join me on my Discord server, which is also linked to the description box also. Yeah, again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.